U.S. intelligence agency, mind control.
It has been 5 years.
The smell must be horrible in there. Yeah, it's literally terrorist butt fungus smell.
Speaking of Libya,
Protecting. Oh, look, it's red. It's totally not Redfish stream. Totally different company. It's got a totally different shell company in Turkey behind its funding.
The NATO invasion started very violently.
You see the flags that they're flying
there? Not just military units, as they claimed.
The green flags?
Yeah.
Muslim
They're Islamic ones, aren't they?
Yeah, green tends to be Islamic. Yeah, so Muslim Brotherhood type stuff. They're trying to be like, look, these are Islamists.
The NATO invasion started very violently. It targeted not just military units, as they claimed. It targeted hospitals, schools, neighborhoods, streets. And they always claimed that.
What about your infrastructure? They also bombed your water, your oil, your electricity. It's a fucking strategic warfare. No shit.
Units hiding in these places. Of course, the result was a good few massacres of thousands of Libyan civilians. As a matter of fact, we challenged the international community, the United Nations, the Security Council, to come to Libya since 2011, and now we are in 2023.
It's crazy. There were massacres that were done on both sides, specifically one side.
بيت دار زنقة فرد
and dead. We believe more than 30,000 civilians were directly killed by NATO's attacks, which were in the area of 35,000 raids with thousands of rockets and tens of thousands of bombs.
In NATO bombings.
Yes. What?
Believable.
Until now, 12 years later, no international investigation has been carried out. No fact-finding mission came to Libya. No compensation was paid for the victims. And the narrative in the West is that we targeted Gaddafi's military units.
Victims. What world do you live in, bro? Right now, they're being like, Putin, you're going to have to pay for this war. Putin is going to fucking be a weasel like he always is. They're going to fucking be like, yo, you refuse to pay more sanctions, and that's all that's going to fucking happen.
I saw with my own eyes, with hundreds of journalists from around the world, the dead bodies of kids under the rubbles of NATO's bombardment. I myself took hundreds, not dozens, but
not Gaddafi,
tens, but hundreds of international journalists from the West, from Africa, from Asia, from Latin America, to the locations of these crimes only a few hours after these crimes were committed. And the journalists from all around the world saw the dead bodies of kids, of mothers, of men, civilians from all walks of life, not in one location, but in many locations, in Tripoli, in the outskirts of Tripoli, in Zlitan, in Bani Walid, later on in the city of Sirt and Az-Zawiya. These crimes were not just the direct ones, but there was a destruction of the infrastructure of the country.
Talking's not natural.
There were attacks on hospitals, on schools, on oil facilities, on ports, roads.
Check this out. I
Libya
just did a little
had to suffer for years.
This is
just did a little Google search. I said civilian deaths in Libya. Okay.
Yep.
Here's some headlines. NATO killed civilians in Libya. It's time to admit it. Obviously, they did. Airstrikes, proxy warfare, civilian casualties in Libya. I'm not sure what this site is. New America. Responsible statecraft. 10-year civilian bloodbath follows NATO airstrikes in Libya. Sounds sketchy. Sounds like a sketchy inflammatory headline. Civilian casualties report. That's from the UN, not the US. Post-inflate Libyan civilian deaths caused by NATO in 2011. Claim NATO killed tens of thousands of civilians, if not hundreds of thousands of civilians. Claimed by social media users. False. If we are to believe this, right?
Sure, it's AP
propaganda.
Untrustworthy.
AP assessment false. Estimates for how many civilians are killed during the NATO campaign vary, but experts told the Associated Press that figures placing civilian casualties in the tens of thousands are dramatically inflated. Non-governmental organizations have also said far fewer civilians were killed by the NATO airstrikes, estimates ranging from 72 to 403. That's like Matt Walsh being like, oh, I'm sure millions of kids have had this done now. And it's like, oh, it says here only 10.
Years and years,
like,
and still suffering.
I don't think
until
we
now.
need to like be unrealistic that civilians obviously fucking died. Like it's not fucking Santa Claus in there dropping like freedom presents on people.
No, they're bombs.
Yeah.
They go boom. They make shrapnel go flying. Chances people die are quite high. That's the point.
But also, like, Gaddafi leveled cities too. Just like not as bad as Assad, but he could have been if we let him go.
From this damage to the infrastructure, with no compensation and no plan for rebuilding the country. Libya had an African project of liberation for the whole continent. It was an actual project on the ground that encompassed economics, politics, and culture. And Gaddafi was the leader of this project, recognized throughout the whole continent. Was the not just the idea or the dream, but the actual
Gaddafi, king of the blacks,
on the African Central Bank and the African golden dinar, which Gaddafi wanted to name the golden afro, and the African satellite network.
What is that?
Gaddafi. Do you know? Have you seen this? The cutaway for this?
I haven't. No.
He goes. Basically, it's about Peter going to say the N-word. And he's like, "All right, I'm going in there. I'm going to go say the N-word to a black guy." And then it cuts, and he comes back in. And he says, "They made me their king," and I.
Which Libya also initiated and started to coordinate with other African countries for training and the buying of weapons and the organization, and many other economically viable, politically important, and culturally central ideas and dreams for the continent. The West were not happy with that because this meant that the billions and billions that are robbed from Africa will remain in Africa for the benefit of the African nations. They did indeed talk to Gaddafi. They talked to us. I was involved in some of these talks, and they warned Libya, the revolution.
Just say that Libya had resources, and the U.S. took those resources from Libya, and it's affected Libya's wealth. Like, how hard is it to just fucking say that the West profited off the war and now has control of Libya's resources? Like, of course, it's a Gaddafi spokesperson, so what do we expect? But, like, just fucking be, like, realistic with your propaganda. Like, come on. Revolutionary Gaddafi Libya. Okay, bro.
Revolutionary Gaddafi Libya, that it should stop what they called intervening in the affairs of the continent. Something very ironic, since Libya is itself an African country, while these threatening countries were European Western countries. After many years of talk and negotiation and trying to find a middle ground.
You mean to tell me none of the other African nations had a problem with Libya?
Also, isn't North Africa classified with the Middle East, not Africa?
Yeah,
and then it's sub-Saharan Africa?
It's MENA, MENA, Middle East, North Africa. Yes.
Yeah.
But Gaddafi has two phases, kind of. His first phase is like, oh, I'm going to unite the Arabs, right? I'm going to be the guy who brings the next caliphate, almost, right? And like they all told him to fuck off, especially Saddam. Like, if we want to give Saddam credit for one thing, it was talking shit about Gaddafi. Like the Shah also hated him. Like all these countries fucking hated him, right? So he's like, fine, I'll be king of the black people instead. Here's my token black guy, Nelson Mandela. I support him. Well, like Gaddafi, like he has done based things, like, you know, he like supports underdogs and struggles and things like that. He helped the IRA come to power and stuff like that. Yes. But ultimately, Like, just type in Gaddafi. Do me a favor. Open a Google tab because I'm eating and I have cinnamon on my hands. Open it to Google tab and type in Gaddafi, Liberia. 2 words. What do we get? Anything fun?
I got historical relations, I guess. Days after the 1980 Liberian coup that overthrew the government, the Libyan government under Gaddafi recognized the coup leader, the first African country to do so. He was also given an invitation by Gaddafi to visit the Libyan capital of Tripoli, much to the concern of the US. However, this diplomatic cordiality by the Libyan regime was met with skepticism and suspicion, who surmised that Gaddafi was attempting to bring Liberia into Libya's sphere of influence as a part of his Pan-African ambitions. The Secretary of State.
He literally funded the war there. That was brutal. That was a Gaddafi-backed war that happened in Liberia.
From the coup side.
Yeah, where they were like eating each other and shit.
That's and then they turned around and like, fuck you. That's great.
There's a lot of history here with Gaddafi in that country.
I got African.
Look at where Liberia is compared to fucking Gaddafi's place.
Yeah, it's down the
yeah
bottom. Here you go. Liberia cuts ties with Gaddafi. This is recent history.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't long ago. Liberia severs diplomatic ties with Libya, latest African country to distance itself from Gaddafi since NATO-backed uprising against him. It comes after Senegal received a delegation of Libyan rebel leaders last month. What the fuck? This is so interesting.
Senegal hates him too.
The government took the decision after a careful review of the situation in Libya and determined that the government of Colonel Gaddafi has lost its legitimacy to govern Libya. Said the the office of the Senegalese said that. That's a pretty good burn. You are no longer the authority. Shut the fuck up. Crazy.
The West understood that Gaddafi and revolutionary Libya will not stop, especially when
revolutionary Libya, he calls it.
Gold in vast quantities to support the issuing of the African golden dinar.
But let's not look at
Libya as well.
Let's not look at Russia's golden endeavors.
With some African countries, especially Mali, Senegal, Niger, and others, to build the African Unified Army, which will get rid, of course, of the French army, the American army, the British units in the Sahel and the Sahara region.
What about
so in 2011?
What about the Russian units?
You have more than enough to hire competent hackers and ruin your competition.
Swallow your food. Holy shit.
11 with the turmoil in the area in the Middle East, in Egypt, or started in Tunisia and in other pockets. The West used some internal problems in the country.
Yeah, that's what Peter says. Small, they respected me for it.
Very manageable. Things like this we did have before in the 70s and 80s and 90s, and Libyans were always able to solve these internal conflicts due to the tribal nature of the society and due to the revenue-based economy. But this time the West decided to intervene and to lead a false revolution.
I did everything right and they indicted me.
The African Liberation Project that was led by the country. In October 2010, the French sent delegations to Libya in an attempt.
His existence is a LARP. That's what I'm getting. From all of these pictures, Gaddafi's existence was a LARP.
Yeah. So listen, they're saying they're counter-revolutionary because Gaddafi's government was a revolutionary government.
Yeah, well, that's the logic, right?
Yeah, so because the revolutionaries were against the revolutionary government, they were counter-revolutionaries.
Yeah, exactly.
Sounds, you know what it sounds like to me?
A government.
To talk to Gaddafi and the Libyan government and discourage them from continuing their.
No offense, but it sounds like
liberation
some
project in the
fucking
African
commie
continent,
gobbledygook.
the most important of which is the golden dinar. Libya was accumulating gold in order to support the issuing and circulation of the African golden dinar. Now, this caused
Here it
concern
is.
not just for France.
That's
but
why
also for
BRICS is
Britain
going to take them
and the
out. They're
States.
so scared. Their currency is going to fall. Gaddafi was going to take out the U.S. dollar, but Hillary Clinton stopped him with one email.
But the
Who are
French
we
at that
fucking
time
kidding?
had some dealings
Like-
with the Libyan government.
If
And
that is such a threat to the U.S., why are they not serious about BRICS? Oh, because BRICS is a joke, just like Gaddafi was.
there was a dialogue established between Sarkozy and Gaddafi. Gaddafi decided not to wage like wars on all
Okay.
fronts and to try
Let
to
me explain
pacify.
to you the imperial motivations here, since this guy is bad at it. EEZs, okay? Exclusive economic zones. The Mediterranean Sea is split up between many nations. Turkey, Italy, you know, they're all fighting over like this one region with Egypt and Libya, and it's very annoying. It's very
And how
annoying.
Cyprus is right in the middle, and that's why Turkey's
So
occupying.
that's all in that region. So already there's that interest coming in for those exclusive economic zones. Secondly, we know very well who, even when Gaddafi was in power, who did the policing for migrants, for the black people who got to the border and were about to cross the Mediterranean. We know what Navy did the policing for that and killed those people.
Same one that's doing them now.
Yeah, if anything, Gaddafi was more beneficial to them in that regard, but not with the EEZs. So if we're going to frame anything in that regard, and also we have to think about France and France's role in Africa. We could easily frame this as like a anti-France thing, but no, it has to be the U.S. who was the NATO-backed invasion, not France. It couldn't be France. It's not like France is fucking over many countries in Africa with their fucking economic system. Talk about an economic system. Why is he going after the U.S. dollar and not the fucking, what is the fucking French currency? CFRs.
The franc.
No. The CFR in Africa.
Is that what it is?
Yes. CFR Africa, I think. Right?
Yes, Central African franc. CAF.
So half of these governments' wealth has to be stored in French banks and they can't touch it to be on this like standardized currency. That means that France literally has stolen half their wealth. If they can't cut into that wealth, they don't have it. So they're already having a country's wealth in half just for this franc. Fuck off. Where's Gaddafi there? Where's the revolutionary action there? It's not there because he didn't give a fuck about Africa. It was just LARP, anti-US, America bad, LARP.
Oh, and you know what's even better? West Africa and Central Africa, different ones. So they can't even trade with each other. They have to trade with currency exchange.
Yep.
So that's pretty cool. Good job, France.
Yeah.
So that means, yeah. So what are these countries? These countries are 12 nations. Guinea-Bissau. Why is it not giving me a fucking list?
He set up 10 outside Trump Tower. Hang on, I gotta see.
Okay, here we go. Okay. So we've got Benin, Burkina Faso, Guinea-Bissau, Ivory Coast, Mali, Niger, whatever you want, Senegal, Togo, Cameroon, Central African Republic, Chad, Equatorial Guinea, Gabon, and the Republic of the Congo are all under this system. But you thought the US was the appropriate target here.
I think those pictures might have literally been Gaddafi outside the White House. Oh, he just travels with that tent, I guess, because here's him with Vuvuzela guy. the Vuvuzela man. So he just travels with
Oh,
it.
yeah.
But here it is. It's literally at Trump's like
Oh my god.
Gaddafi. Look how they spelled it here. K H A D A F Y. Gaddafi.
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 Gaddafi. Gaddafi.
Yeah, the Q is fine. Spelling it with a Q is fine.
Mm.
That's funny. That's so funny. He's
The West,
like,
while he
that's the issue. Is like the thing that we should really be mad about is that Gaddafi is not on Twitter now because of France and then the U.S. France started it, then the U.S. Now it's Turkey. Who's but yeah. Anyway, I think the French even bombed him. It wasn't even the bomb that like took him out. That when the rebels captured him, I'm pretty sure it was a French aircraft as well. But don't quote me on that.
goes ahead with his projects, economic, political, and cultural for the African continent. The French used this open channel to
Thank
talk to
you.
Gaddafi.
Oh my God, finally.
And they spoke not just for themselves, they made this very clear. They spoke for the European continent and for the States. And when Gaddafi said to the French, this is none of your business. This is our continent. It's our oil, our banks, our currency. We seek independence. You built up the euro for yourself in Europe. We are going to build up the golden dinar for ourselves and the continent. And I think this was the last straw, if you like, for the French. They robbed Africa dry. The French economy is built
This is such a better narrative.
And what
Such a
Gaddafi
better
was
narrative.
doing
this is way better.
was very harmful to the imperialist interests of France. This was
because this is not
later
necessarily false.
No.
admitted to by important figures like Hillary Clinton.
Oh my God!
Leaked emails.
Clinton jump
And we're already back out. We're already back
for
in
us
La La
attacking
Land.
Libya is Gaddafi's attempt to issue the golden dinar. She
WikiLeaks.
wrote
We
this
got her.
in black and white in her leaked emails. Berlusconi of Italy as well talked about this frankly, and he said,
not
"Let us be honest.
Berlusconi.
We attacked Libya for what it was."
You mean the guy 3 steps removed from Mussolini?
Remember
is,
how I just said
a fascist?
Italy,
Wow.
remember how I just said Italy's interest here is the EEZ?
Mm-hmm.
Trying to do in Africa, kicking us out of the continent. The British Parliamentarian Committee that was established in 2015 and finished its investigation in 2016 also admitted that what Libya was doing in Africa seems to be a factor in the attack against the country in 2011.
Okay.
These are facts, and people who do not know them need to read, need to find out the truth. Otherwise, NATO and the West
do your
will
research
continue
on
waging
what
wars
Gaddafi was doing in
everywhere.
Africa. Please do.
Please, we encourage this.
Gaddafi's way
we
cooler in the
committing
Reagan
massacres.
era, honestly.
Huh?
Gaddafi's like way cooler in the Reagan era, honestly.
Mm.
There's this funny time. They bombed Libya, I don't know what for, like oil or something stupid.
Yeah.
And Gaddafi said that they killed his child.
Okay.
And he says this fucking banger line about America. I'll find it. But like, yeah, it never happened. His kid didn't die in there. He lied.
Regions and causing not just the death of many, but causing generations to come to suffer and to grow up with hatred.
He's such a theater kid,
with,
you know?
with bitterness that leads.
Well, theoretically, what if world leaders were just like, you dropped a bomb in our country, you killed a kid. They're like, prove it. No. You killed a kid. Why should we have to prove it? You dropped the bomb in our country. Fuck you. Just control the narrative that way.
Well, normally they go, we
obtuse about it.
investigated ourselves and we did nothing wrong. They bombed Libya for
terrorism and violence.
So,
well, it was post Arab Spring, right? After they killed them.
Reagan. I'm saying. This one.
I thought that isn't that why they went in
well, the Arab Spring. So the Gaddafi didn't like the Arab Spring because he didn't want to leave power. He was their counter-revolutionaries. They had green flags.
Mm-hmm.
The 80s was all a pretty big lie anyway. I know, right? It's almost like looking back on it, it's a television show because because all our like material from that time we've seen through these old cameras and stuff.
Yeah.
So it almost like doesn't seem real. Okay. So it was the United States Air Force, Navy, and Marine Corps carried out strikes codenamed Operation El Dorado Canyon against Libya on April 15th. It's actually 15 April here. They put the date first for you, Jack. 1986, in retaliation for West Berlin discotheque bombing 10 days earlier, which U.S. President Reagan blamed on Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi. So, and then right here, there were 40 reported Libyan casualties. One U.S. plane was shot down. One of the claimed Libyan deaths was of a baby girl reported to be Gaddafi's daughter, Hannah Gaddafi. However, there are doubts as to whether she was really killed or whether she truly existed at all. So, it's Red Army faction, though. So, Red Army faction, IRA, all these things are implicated in this. So,
the payback for the West.
Though.
The Gaddafi revolution of September 1969 came, and Libya was an occupied country. We had 5 major military bases, foreign.
Question. If you're a military commander and the leader of the country is out of the country, and you just walk into the palace and sit in the chair and go, "I have a chip," and that's how you get power, is that a revolution?
I technically, yeah. He
literally just took a guy's chair. I do think it's baller that he kept the rank of colonel, though, because that's some George Washington vibes of like, it's a humble Mr. President while I whip my slaves, you know?
Military bases in the country,
I
south,
give credit where it's due.
east, and west. Our economy was owned completely by the European oil companies and the American oil companies. The level of education in the country was extremely low. All of the sectors of society were suffering: health, transport, education, culture. Gaddafi led one of the most radical revolutions in the region. And within a few years, as a matter of fact, within few months, all of the 5 foreign military bases were kicked out, were shut down. Oil was regained back to the Libyan people in famous negotiations with the oil companies of 1972 and 1973. Universities were built everywhere. Almost each and every Libyan city had either a university or a higher education institution, hospitals, clinics, and suddenly, within 10 years, Libya was a different country. Libyans were living longer, they were living happier, and they were feeling the masters of their country. And this went on for decades, albeit against international sanctions. Well, we call them international, but they are Western sanctions against American aggression. America attacked Libya a few times. People should know that in 1981.
That's a good picture.
How many times did Libya attack other countries?
America attacked.
That's a good picture.
Hey, did Libya do assassinations all over the place?
Libya a few times. People should know that in 1981 and 1986. And then the major siege of the Lockerbie case from, that took all of the 90s. So to grow up in Al-Jamahiriya, in the Gaddafi's Libya, was an amazing experience of revolution, of change, of achievements, of dreams, and of improving reality. In 2011, Libya was known to be the richest country in Africa per capita. And this is a fact. The viewers can check with ease from the United Nations Human Development Index. Libya moved from a very, very low rank in 1969 to one of the highest ranks in the Human Development Index for a non-Western society. By not 2011
as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what the thing is it's the difference is being able to maintain that economic uplift. You know, some would say that it's debated, but like Deng Xiaoping, there was at least industrialization and economic uplift of China with his policy. It created wealth disparity, yes, but those policies have been maintained up to this day, right?
And the wealth disparity has gotten worse and worse.
Yes, and it does everywhere. But my point is like that's a lot different than Venezuela and Libya. What happened to them, where they were able to only maintain this wealth for a short period of time.
Yes.
Actually, much earlier on, by 1985, 1986, this experience was also cultural, because the Libyan people did not just benefit materially, but Libyan culture flourished. People felt good about themselves. They felt good about their identity, about their skin color, about their religion, about their history, their independence, and they felt a strong sense of
I like
brotherhood,
Gaddafi's son. As far as
with
successors
Arab
to
neighbors,
Libya,
with
I
their
think
African
Gaddafi's
neighbors,
son is still the
and
best
they
candidate.
Interesting. What makes you say that?
He's just basically he's his dad, but less crazy. So he has revolutionary backing for Palestine. His Palestine solution is actually kind of impressive, right?
Okay.
He wants to be in a place where he worked like how like Arafat and Nelson Mandela did. He wants Libya to take that revolutionary image, about a Western resistance type thing, but basically working with the system. The reason why they won't let it happen is because when the war happened, his father ordered him to do war crimes, and he's implicated in war crimes. Which, to me, I don't really care. Like, your Haftar controls a bunch of Libya too. He who committed the war crimes if not him? And we're dealing with him, so it's just the UN-backed one that won't, put him in there. But even Haftar won't just give power to Gaddafi's son.
In the struggle of the African continent for independence, many African leaders were taught and educated in Libya. Libya helped Nelson Mandela and the South African struggle for liberation. Most African countries gained their independence from the West with the help of revolutionary Libya. So this is a country that was independent, sovereign, flourishing.
I mean, he's not necessarily lying there. What he's saying is that they supplied arms to revolutionary governments throughout the world in Africa, which, Castro did too. Look at Angola, even North Korea is there for many of these, and even the United States sometimes, and European powers. Sometimes we're all on the same side against some weird enemy. There's sides when it's US and China against Russia at this time. Very interesting time in Africa. Not great for people, of course.
Very well, even on the political realm, Libyans felt that they shared in the running of their society. They had many democratic platforms that they formed from the bottom up, and they felt that they had a say in the affairs of their society through the basic popular conferences that were established in 1977, and through the media, the local national media that were established in every major Libyan city, and through the tribal structure. There were tribal councils for each tribe and major family in the country. So Libyans felt included in the political process, and they did feel that it could be, of course, improved and widened and deepened and radicalized. But I do believe that most Libyans felt included and felt happy. That is why Gaddafi was able to stand tall against the most powerful.
All my people love me. All
for more than 8 months, fighting.
If you say that they love
alone,
you,
but with most Libyans.
It is a guide. It is guide, not my people. It is guide. Guide. Yes.
Only the very small minority, led by religious extremists, sided with the West, and they were fighting against the revolutionary government of Libya. The Western mainstream media was part of the attack on the country, was part of the agenda, was part of the plan. I saw them lie day in, day out. I saw them exclude truthful events that they themselves witnessed. I saw how they downplayed the murder of thousands of civilians. Stop the lies, stop the misinformation, convey the truth. You have the freedom to film anything. You have the freedom to go to the hospital to film the bodies, attend the funeral, interview as many people as possible. Do your job as professionally as possible, but keep your hearts beating. Keep your hearts beating. I saw them how they downplayed the destruction of the country and how they distorted every statement I personally made to them. I complained to them, I talked to them, I tried to reach them, but they always, I felt, the control wasn't with the journalists on the ground, but actually in the editing rooms of these mainstream media in London, in Washington, in Paris, in Rome, in Berlin, and other places. And it was very clear to me that there was no variety of voices in the mainstream media of the West. There wasn't any real competition between them to present the truth. They were all copies of each other. They sounded the same. They said the same things. They reached the same conclusions. They never tried to get out of the narrow path that was designed for them. And this was very clear to me. And I started to understand this quite early, but I did have to deal with them for 8 months. And I think the end result is that the mainstream media of the West is bought up by the system, is a servant, a very truthful servant of the interests of the rich and powerful. And the rich and powerful in the West, they wanted the revolutionary government of Libya to fall, and they wanted to continue to exploit Africa. So the media did just what was necessary for this plan, for this imperialist project to continue in Africa. The latest developments in Africa, the opposition to the presence of the French military in the continent, protesting the American influence, the British influence in the continent, the demands by popular sections of African societies for African economic independence, banking independence, all of this makes me feel good about our sacrifices in Libya for the continent of Africa. I am in contact with many.
Okay. I have lost interest. I don't know. Let's put it to.
I'm trying to find this quote so hard, but it's
Okay,
like
well,
if I look up Gaddafi calls America a terrorist government, it's all about how Gaddafi ran a terrorist government.
That's all right.
Wow. Huh. Unconfirmed. Yeah. Unconfirmed. No. Unconfirmed reports about Gaddafi being captured. Unconfirmed. Yeah. We've had too many. We've had a bunch of those before. We've had, have had him.
Shut up! Shut up! You shouldn't say that out loud, Hillary. You dumb fuck. This is why your emails got leaked. You don't look at your phone and go, hey, it's unconfirmed, but maybe Gaddafi got captured and we killed him and raped him with a knife. Shut up, Hillary.
This woman was a Secretary of State.
She ran for president and lost to Donald Trump.
I'm kind of glad. She might be brain dead.
She might, yeah. She could have been worse, at least on foreign policy. Trump was pretty
bad, might be brain dead.
Are you aware of a CIA psychological profile about you, sir? Would you be interested in hearing what the CIA had to say? This secret study portrays as a brilliant but dangerous megalomaniac who is likely to pursue his own aims in disregard of U.S. interests. He's an uncertain ally. Shall I go on, or would you prefer that I stop, sir?